Hi everyone, my name's Allison. Today I'm just going to be giving you an introduction to our presentation, which is social media overload. And so I'm going to begin with an overview of our presentation. So starting out, we'll be talking about the history of social media, so where it started versus where it is now. And then we'll move to who social media is affecting both negatively and positively. Next, we'll talk about the problem and consequences of media overload. Then we'll talk about solutions to the issue of social media overload, some things you can do to kind of fix it. And then we'll be talking about the Netflix documentary called The Social Dilemma and kind of how that fits into our topic of social media overload. And then we'll be talking about social media as a platform and kind of who can use it and how to use it effectively. And then lastly, we'll be talking about using literature to solve the problem of social media overload. So every day, as we know, we're college students. You walk around and a lot of people have their heads down in their phones. I'm definitely guilty of it. I think most people are. But what are we looking at? So 51% of the world has social media, and a lot of the times it is social media. Granted, there are text messages and emails and things from school that we have to use our phones for, but a lot of the world is using social media a lot of the time. And a question I just have to all the rest of the class is, do you have a social media, and how many do you have? I know for me personally, I have like every social media you can have, which, after doing this presentation, take a look back and reflect, and that might not be such a great thing, but that's up to you to decide. So being born into a technology era, as our age, like from the range of like probably 17 years old to about 24 years old, we were born in like the technology era where we have known nothing but information overload. We kind of just had things thrown at us, all this extra information, and we just had to learn to deal with it. For as long as I can remember, for example, I've always had at least one computer in the household, and always had access to technology and information through technology, and therefore social media. So I know since I've been old enough to remember, I've always had social media around me. Our parents, for some of us, and our grandparents, for most of us, on the other hand, they didn't have social media. They didn't have the overflow of information that we've always had. They basically had the morning news, the evening news, and what was written in the newspaper, and that was pretty much it. So older generations especially deal with some information and social media overload, just because we are thrown with so much information at us all the time. You can go onto Twitter and see what's trending on the other side of the world. It's just, there's so much information all the time, and that can lead to digital overload and social media overload, especially in those older generations who are still new to all this technology. So digital overload or social media overload is defined as the process in which a person has trouble processing the amount of information they take in online, leading them to feel distracted, anxious, fatigued, or even depressed. And this was especially prevalent in 2020, as we know. We are in a pandemic, and we all had to stay 6 feet apart from each other. We had to quarantine. We were physically very lonely. And in this world where we were so disconnected, we found social media as a tool to help us feel like we weren't as disconnected and to kind of build communities. For example, the platform TikTok was a really popular one, especially over the quarantine times where we were all really lonely. It was nice to log on and see that other people were going through the same stuff we were going through, and it was normal for us to feel that. And in 2020 alone, the app TikTok has been downloaded over 315 million times. That just tells you how many people need to feel that connectedness that social media can give us.